Hi, everyone. Welcome to Tim's Vinyl Confessions. I'm Tim Durling. Matt Phillips joining me today.
Hey,
with
guys.
a shark fin necklace on, and that's significant because today, today we're going to be talking about a little band called Great White. And I never done an episode on Great White before, always meant to, never had much of the discography, but I just figured, you know what? Matt and I will just talk about what we have. I've said this before, their discography is kind of a jumbled mess a little bit for various reasons, but we're going to talk about what we do have. And I think Matt's got a lot more than I do, but we'll kind of, basically show you what we've got for this band, a band that I was not into for many years. I was not into them with, when they were at their most popular. And, it's hard to get into a band when their best known song you don't like. So it's we'll talk about that. But anyway, Matt can obviously speak to Great White fandom a lot more than I can. When did you first when did you first hear Great White, Matt, and when did you first get into them?
Yeah, I got into them when a lot of people our age got into them in high school. When that album came out, the one with the dots at the beginning, not at the end, Twice Shy. So when did that album come out? 1989. So I remember it was the summer of, I believe that was my 11th year of high school. And thankfully I went back, and after I really got into that record, I went back and discovered some of the other stuff. I like almost all of their discography. Like you said, we don't have everything, but one thing I did kind of find out this year, I also happened to finally get into Rat this year. And the reason I'm bringing this up, I've been getting into watching a lot of videos about Rat and their music videos and interviews. And I didn't realize that they literally came up in the same scene. I always thought of Motley Crue and Rat and those bands kind of in one scene, but I didn't realize Great White was actually part of that scene.
Yeah, California, but not necessarily the Sunset Strip. I think like Rat were based in San Diego, and apparently that made a difference back then. There's a difference between San Diego and LA and the Bay Area. To us, I mean, I've never been to California. It's all the same thing, right? But yeah, I mean, a band that's gone through a lot of changes. Of course, we'll get this out of the way, and I don't want to mention it again. Unfortunately, now since 2003, just a shadow of great tragedy cast over the band, and publicity for all the wrong reasons. We're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the music. So we'll get started. So Great White's recording career began with like Rat. Funny you should mention that, with an EP, and sometimes I've seen it called Out of the Night. Sometimes I've seen it called On Your Knees. Sometimes I've seen it called Nothing, just self-titled. A 5-song EP, which, correct me if I'm wrong, was produced by Don Dokken.
Yeah. So that's like all of those bands kind of knew each other. Yeah.
So Don Dokken figures into this band early on. I don't have that EP, sort of. I'll get to that. But the full-length debut album from Great White came out in 1984 on EMI Records, and I think Matt, you and I, we only have this on vinyl, right? This is the only
that's right.
format. Yeah. So self-titled. I think this back cover is what the EP looked like. I'm not 100% sure about that, but this photo of the band, I think it's on stairs or something like that, but they're sort of standing two here, two up here. And this is a Canadian edition on EMI, and actually, mine has the same sleeve that Matt has. It's got the lyrics in it as well.
I always get a kick out of this little inset photo of, I'm pretty sure that's Mark Kendall at the bottom. Warning, this record contains uncomplimentary references to occultists and has backwards masking.
Yeah, that was big at the time. Everybody was talking about that. I believe that's Michael Wagner, but I'm not 100% sure about that. Sitting with one of the band members. And they're only listed as a 4-piece at this point, even though they thank Michael Lardy. So there's no one listed as a full-time keyboard player. I'm trying to check. Was this album? Yeah, this album was produced by Michael Wagner, so that probably is Michael Wagner. This album's hard to find. I don't have it on CD or cassette. This is what it looks like on the labels. EMI America, the North American branch of EMI. It's the only album they would do for that exact branch because they'd switch labels. A lot of label issues with this band too. And this album, if you were to hear it, you might be surprised. It's actually quite heavy. It's heavy the way that Rat was heavy, or some people have said it's heavy like the more commercial side of Judas Priest is. Like, you've got another thing coming, like more radio-friendly Priest songs. Not really bluesy, which is what they've become known for. But right out of the gate, you get Jack Russell, who's just this awesome, forceful, bluesy singer. Martin Popoff once described his voice as a cross between a more potent early Robert Plant and Vince Neil's Spoiled Wine.
That's awesome.
It's perfect for this type of music for sure.
Yeah.
Now, neither of us, I could be wrong. I certainly don't. Our good buddy Jex has it on CD. He was lucky enough to find it. I don't think either of us have the second album, Shot in the Dark.
No, Jex just found it this year too.
Yeah. That is a rare thing to find in the wild for sure. So we're going to skip ahead to 1987. So given that neither of us have Shot in the Dark, we're going to get to the third full-length album. This is where a lot of people got on board with this band because it did go platinum. It wasn't the success that they would have 2 years after this, but a lot of people did get on board in 1987 with this album, Once Bitten, ... And my version here, I think this is a US album. I've said this many times. I really hate the way they wrote the song titles. Like, I really, really hate the way they write the song titles. It's just about impossible to read. By now, they are a 5-piece, and there's keyboards in here now on songs like Lady Red Light. Really, really good stuff. And this is, again, not being a fan from the outset, when a lot of people got on board, I remember listening to this and being surprised that there's a lot of just straight ahead 80s hard rock with keyboards, and really, really well done. This is on Capitol now, which is affiliated with EMI, but now they've just switched to Capitol. And this has possibly my favorite Great White song in Rock Me. Always did kind of like that song, and it's like 7 some minutes long, and it could just go on and on and on. It's just got the best chorus, and I love the dynamics in it. Got a great ballad, Save Your Love. Lady Red Light was another single, great tune. A lot of good stuff on this one. And I got it on CD here as well. And the CD I got is some kind of strange Capitol reissue. And there's not much in it. I think it might be the same version that Matt has. I'm not sure.
Yeah, mine doesn't even have a booklet at all. So
okay,
I think
so. Mine's different. Than mine does have a booklet, and it's got. They did a little bit of a write up about each of the songs and some liner notes, but yeah, there's no lyrics in it or anything like that. So I believe that one went platinum, and so that sort of set the stage. People were ready for what came next. But before that, in 1988, Enigma Records put this out, which I only have on cassette. This is called Recovery Live. And what this has is on side 1 is labeled, there's the cassette right there. It's Canadian cassette. Side 1 says 1986. It's got 5 songs and they're all covers. Great White are known for their covers. They do great covers. So it's got 2 Zeppelin right off the front, Immigrant Song and Rock and Roll. Money, That's What I Want. I don't think they wrote it, but it's probably best known for the Beatles doing it. Red House by Jimi Hendrix and I Don't Need No Doctor, which is written by Ashford and Simpson, but I think it's best known because Humble Pie did it. Wasp did it as well many years later. But side 2 is their original 5-song EP. It says 1983, so it's Hard and Cold, Substitute, another cover, a Who song, Street Killer, Bad Boys, and Stick It, which is actually an old video for Stick It if you go on YouTube. Would like to have this on vinyl and CD. This is, I don't consider this the follow-up to Once Bitten. It's just something that was put in between, but it might be the easiest way to get that EP in some form or another. So next up, what Matt's already alluded to, 1989, the best known Great White Album. I think it's a double platinum seller. I'm not 100% sure about that. ... Twice Shy. And this is a US version. Again, same layout as Once Bitten, just different colors. All of the song titles are meshed together. I really don't like it. Anyway, this one's got a lyric sleeve with this one, some credits down the side, and the record itself doesn't use the rainbow label anymore. It's the purple capital logo. It's also got the shark on there, and their logo is written out in the Stravinsky brothers, which I think was their management. That's all on here. It's in really good shape. And this album, of course, this changed everything for Great White because it contained their cover, once again, a cover of Ian Hunter's Once Bitten, Twice Shy. Some of you out there might not have even known that was a cover, but it was. And it was a huge hit all over the radio. The video was huge. Is that the first video that Bobby Brown appeared in? Or was it just the first really well-known video? It was impossible to to get rid of the song, and I hated it. I never liked it. It's different. Considering the hard rock that was out in 1989, it was different. It was bluesy, had piano in it, and I didn't care for it for whatever reason. And even now, it's not a favorite of mine, but I do like it, and I recognize that it's a classic. And it's the song that gave these guys a career. But there's other great songs on here. Highway Nights is really good. Move It. They had another minor hit with the ballad, The Angel Song. Great tune. And a song that was a single but wasn't a top 40 hit was basically a blues called House of Broken Love. By now, they're sort of establishing the sound that Great White would become known for, which is bluesy hard rock. Yeah. Like Matt, I've got the CD here as well. Mine's I think it's just a US edition. Nothing really different in it that's not in the record.
The nearly 2-minute intro to House of Broken Love is actually one of my favorite things that they've ever recorded.
See, it's quite long, isn't it? Before the vocal comes.
Yeah, just a guitar solo.
Basically a long. If my memory recalls correctly, they did that on the American Music Awards.
That's right. In 1990, they were on the American.
I know a lot of people in this area. Yeah, it seems to me that's the song they did. I got it on cassette too, which again, there's not a lot of surprises here. It's a clear colored cassette because it's a US one, which is kind of cool. There is an extended or a more deluxe version of this you can get if you get a UK import. It's got some other songs on it. Not really anything worth mentioning. And also I know a lot of people in my school that saw Great White because they actually played in Fredericton. They opened for Alice Cooper on the Trash Tour. I think January or February of 1990. So I know a lot of people that went to see that show and got into the band really heavy there. Of course, number one, I'd never seen any concerts at this point, and that wouldn't have been one I'd want to go to. Now I'd love to get in the Dory and go back and see that show because, Alice was on a big comeback with Trash and Great White were just on fire at this point.
Yeah. You mentioned the American Music Awards. Alice actually, I think those American Music Awards were like in March or April of 1990. So he'd been on tour with them for a while and he introduced them at that show. I think Alice did either like Bed of Nails or House of Fire or something like that from the Trash album on the same awards show.
It was a good year, man.
Yeah.
And if anybody wants to go back and watch the episode we did with Bud Campbell on Best Albums of 1989, we talk about both of those albums. So back to Great White, 1991, early 1991, new Great White album appears called Hooked. And so Matt and I both have, I guess you could call it the censored version. This is Hugh Syme artwork, actually. And this is a U.S. Columbia House issue on Capitol. Like, I like the disc itself. I like the design on the CD itself. I think it's kind of cool. So some places got this version for the cover. Some places got this version for the cover. And, you know, it's Hugh Syme artwork and design right down to the font used.
Yeah.
Because if you look at Whitesnake Slip of the Tongue or Night Ranger Man in Motion, or, you know, for whatever reason, when he designed an album, it was right down to the font, which is pretty cool. This has all the lyrics and credits in it. And this is a really, really good album. This, you know, is a band that I went back and discovered later. This is a really good album. Unfortunately, I would say a drawback is that it's pretty obvious to me that they tried to recreate the success of Once Bitten, Twice Shy with a song of their own, that one being Call It Rock and Roll. It's not a bad song, but I've said this before, when a band usually tries to recreate a song, the second time around is usually not as good. But there's other great songs on here. Heartbreaker's a good one. It's not a cover, by the way. Desert Moon, great song. There are a couple of covers on here. Afterglow is, I believe, a Small Faces song, or maybe the Faces. I get those bands mixed up. Steve Marriott, whatever band Steve Marriott was in. And Can't Shake It, which is the second time that Great White covered the Australian band The Angels, or Angel City, the first time being Face the Day. And really all I know about that band is these two covers, and also Coney Hatch doing their song Marseille, which is on their 4 album. I think this is a really strong album. What are your thoughts on the book, Matt?
Oh, I love it. It actually, for whatever reason, that's another one. Like, I was already into the band, but I didn't follow along with them. It was sort of a transition from going to high school to when I met you in college. And I didn't actually have that album when it came out, so I had to go back and find it. And in doing so, actually, I found one that came out just before their next studio album in 1992. There's this promotional EP that I found. It's 7 songs, got Rock Me, Face the Day, House of Broken Love. Came out just before their next album. It's just called Backtracks, 1986 to 1991.
That's cool. I've never seen that before. Yeah. So that album went gold, which, you know, was gold. There's nothing wrong with that, but it didn't sell as well as Twice Shy. No big hit single off of it. Also, it's 91. The music scene's changing, but pretty quick order. In the fall of 92, they came out with another album called Psycho City. And this is a Canadian version. They're still on Capitol. This is their last new album for Capitol Records. I think this album is a little heavier because it's got Step on You, Big Goodbye, the song Psycho City. This is a good album too. I really like this one. And
I love the way it opens up with it's got that. I've got a few of these albums from that time period where it's like they recorded somebody's voice on their voicemail back when you had to actually record voicemail on tape. And it's like this really weird thing. And I don't know if it's around that time was sort of the LA riots. And I don't know if some of this part of what he's saying in that really weird voice recording has something to do with that. It kind of sounds like a little bit of gang stuff going on, but like you said, one's a little bit heavier than what we've been used to.
And this is one that, like Tony Montana, their bass player, he had left the band at this point. He actually never came back. But inside of this, they list all of their previous Capitol albums. Oddly enough, not the debut, which is still Capitol affiliated, but for whatever reason, they didn't list it. And this album, of course, this hit the delete bins almost immediately. Now, after this, I'm not 100% sure. I've got very little left to talk about. So I'm going to put it over to Matt.
Okay. Right after that one, in 1993 on Capitol Records, they put out The Best of Great White, 86 to 92. So just covering a 6-year period for whatever reason. This one's got Step on You, All Over Now, House of Broken Love. So these are all fairly recent songs. The Big Goodbye from the last 2 albums, Face the Day, Old Rose Motel, Once Bitten, Twice Shy, and Afterglow. Kind of a neat little, pretty neat collage. Reminds me a little bit of Hey Stupid, the album cover, just sort of stuff all over the place.
Yeah,
so that was 1993. And then in 1994 is actually one of my favorite Great White albums, and it's called Sail Away. Tim, have you ever picked up this one? You have it on cassette?
I just
Awesome.
have it on cassette at this point. I have heard it. It's really good. It's mostly acoustic, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's what's interesting. It kind of threw me for a loop the first time I heard this. The first couple of songs, A Short Overture and Mother's Eyes. If you can think of the really soft ballad She Only from Twice Shy, it's like they took that style of song but opened up the album with like a little overture and then a song like that, which was, instead of kicking it off with a big Lady Red Light or All Over Now or like some kind of rockin' song. So
Yeah.
the one I have on CD actually has the 10-song Sail Away album. I also really like the song Crying, Mama Don't Stop, Alone. So those are some really good tunes. Living in the USA is like your really standard kind of Great White song.
Yeah.
But then also came with this Anaheim Live.
Yeah.
7 songs.
Oddly enough, so does this tape, which is odd.
Oh, it does?
I don't
Yeah.
know how rare this is, but yeah, the side 1 of the cassette is the Sail Away album, but side 2 is this Anaheim Live.
Yeah, and it's like a double kind of thing. Now, the next one that I have right after that album is one of my favorite sort of cover albums. This one came out, I want to say 1995-ish. Here, let me see here. 1998, actually.
So both of us are missing an album because they put an album out in 96 called Let It Rock. And I've never heard anything off of it. And neither of us have it. Like at this point, they're going to smaller and smaller labels. So it's with one exception, which Matt will get to, but they're going to smaller and smaller labels. So it's like, if you don't find these when they come out, it's kind of, but yes, continue, Matt. This is a good one.
Yeah. So in 1998, they put out Great Zeppelin, a tribute to Led Zeppelin. Now this, it says it was recorded at the Galaxy Concert Theater in 1996. So the material's a few years old in California. And it's got In the Light, Living Loving Maid, Ramble On, Since I've Been Loving You, just a ton. I mean, there's 14 Led Zeppelin songs. And I think they took a little bit of heat from some of the older Zeppelin fans, and some people were like, well, he's no Robert Plant. And I think even Robert Plant himself might have taken a little kick at the band, but I really like the way they did these songs.
Yeah, they do good Zeppelin. They're really good at it. And they would actually do dates advertising that this is, you're not going to hear Once Bitten Twice Shy. You're not going to hear Rocky. This is Zeppelin. This is us doing Zeppelin. A band they've always, obviously, were heavily influenced by. But yeah, I don't have that. And it's come out in different forms. And I've seen some of the cheaper ones. I want the one that you have because there are really
like a
generic looking, there's really generic looking repackagings of that. And I don't want one of those. I want that one. I'll hold out till I find that one. So then in 1999, and at this point, John Klodner, famous A&R guy, he was with Geffen, but he formed or relaunched the Portrait Records label, which is a Sony distributed label. And a lot of bands from this era he signed. And Rat was one of them. They put out a self-titled album. Cinderella and Damn Yankees, unfortunately, were signed, but they never got an album out. The Cinderella album remains unreleased to this day. I'd love to hear it. But one band that did get an album out was Great White. So they had a major label album out for the first time in a long time in 1999. And I believe Matt has it, maybe not. Yeah.
I do have
from here.
I do have the jewel case, but you might notice I have the album, but if I open it up, I don't actually have the CD anymore. It's a
why do I think I know where that went?
Yeah. Without getting into too much about that, Tim and I had been walking around Toronto and we had a booklet of CDs with us. So we were going to a live concert. And it was that time when they thought that CDs could be used as physical weapons. And so we had to surrender a lot of things to the security guys. After the show, we lost our ticket that let us get our stuff back. And so I've had this CD and a few others with no actual CD inside.
Well, don't get rid of it. Don't get rid
Still
of it, because
replacement copy.
if one of us finds it, we'll make a copy of it, and bada bing, bada boom. But they actually scored, amazingly, they actually scored a minor radio hit with this album with the song Rolling Stone. Great tune. I think Jack Blades co-wrote that one. And it got some airplay, and it actually kind of gave the band a little bit of a foothold. Now, it didn't last, but so what do you think what do you recall about Can't Get There From Here?
Well, I actually really love the artwork. It actually kind of reminds me of an album that the Beach Boys put out in the early 90s. It's kind of like this painted mural sort of thing. Yeah, I do really like this record a lot. Wooden Jesus is a pretty cool tune. Saint Lorraine, Freedom Song. Yeah, I'd really like to find another copy of that one.
Yeah.
After
so
that.
they were with Sony for One More Thing. And this is something we both have. I got this from Columbia House. It's called Latest and Greatest. And what this is pretty much John Plodner had the band as it was at this time, re-record their classic songs. And to their credit, they aren't that different. I think that they're pretty good renditions of them. It's always risky when you do this, but it's a little bit like the Kiss redos on Sonic Boom or Journey on Revelation. They're pretty faithful sounding versions of Rock Me and Once Bitten, Twice Shy, Call It Rock and Roll. They've got Rolling Stone on here, the Can't Get There From Here version, because it's the same label. The whole thing kicks off with In the Light, which is from the Zeppelin covers album. So this is a really cool, of all the compilations, I think this is one of the better ones. But that was it for the band and major label stuff. Now, as for me, I only have one more thing by Great White. I know Matt's got more, so.
Yep. I've got two more things, actually three more things to talk about. So right after that, we're going to take a little detour from Great White, but sticking with Jack Russell. His first solo album came out in 2002. This is Jack Russell For You. You can see it's just a slice of his eyes, and they're kind of tinted. This one looks like it was made in Germany. I don't even know this record label. It's not one that I go back to very often, but I mean, Jack is still in fine form as far as his vocals go. His website back then was planetjr.com.
And wasn't that album a little lighter?
Yeah. So the very next Great White studio album, and the last that they would do with Jack, is Back to the Rhythm. This one came out in 2007. It's not a very Great White looking album cover. It's just a guy in a tattoo parlor. It's kind of neat, but
kind of looks like a punk album almost.
Yeah. So this album is actually really solid. There's no real standout tracks on it for me, but one thing I will say, it definitely has that sort of, if you're familiar with say Poison's Hollyweird, where sort of the songs kind of sound like demos. There's not a lot of like awesome production on here. So but it's a fine album. It's just nothing really kind of stands out to me. I will say, even going into this time, I mean, we're already into the 2000s, and Great White was one of those bands that never really succumbed to, okay, we're going to try our grunge album. I mean, this is as close as they ever got to grunge, and this is nowhere. The only grungy thing about this, they added a little bit of kind of Alice in Chainsy wah-wah sort of effects, but that's about it. So, Great White stayed pretty true to their sound.
Yeah. Didn't they put an album out after that called Rising?
Yeah, so they did a couple of, I'm sorry, yes, they did Rising with that was the final one with Jack Russell? Yeah, sorry about that. I would like to find that one as well. That one came out on Shrapnel Records in 2009.
Yeah, so then they had all, Jack Russell's had all kinds of substance abuse problems, and I don't think the guy's ever been quite the same since the nightclub fire, and a lot of heart. Didn't he have Crohn's or something like that? Like, seems to me he just had a lot of health issues.
He did, yeah.
And I think that at one point And this sounds so tragic because we all know how his story ended up. It seems to me, didn't Janie Lane end up covering for him for some
He
great
did.
white shows? And Janie passed away in 2011. So,
Yeah.
definitely rock and roll casualties. So after that, they replaced him with Terry Ilou, it's French last name. He was the singer for the band XYZ. Well, I believe he still is, and he's done solo work. And he always kind of sounded in that same ballpark, so it kind of made sense. And they put an album out, I think, in 2012 called Elation, which I'm not familiar with. I think I may have heard one song, whatever the video was that they put out from it. And then it kind of gets really confusing with litigation and lawsuits. And it's just a shame that, the band that's been through much tragedy, it's a shame they can't mend those fences. As far as I'm concerned, if you've got Jack Russell and Mark Kendall, you got Great White. And right now, as of right now, still, there are two separate entities kind of using the name. Actually, just last year, I was surprised to find this. I found this at Frank's Music in Moncton. This actually came out in 2017. And it says Jack Russell's Great White, although the logo is being used with the album's called He Saw It Coming. I kind of like the album cover. It's kind of neat. This is on Frontiers Records, which is actually kind of a step up because Frontiers spends a little bit of money on their packaging, and the albums tend to be produced rather well. Really, a lot of unknown names on this. I really don't know any of the names he's got recording with him on this. And musically, it sounds okay. It doesn't necessarily sound like Great White. And again, I think you're missing the Mark Kendall on guitar and even Michael Lardy on the piano and keyboards. And Jack sounds okay on this album, but his vocals sound a little bit, I don't want to say weakened, but just doesn't have the balls that he would sing with. But I'm glad I found this because I paid regular price for it, because it's probably hard to find now and twice the price.
It is.
And then I know that the other bands put out an album called Full Circle, which I've never heard. And they got Mitch Malloy on vocals, who Mitch started out recording on his own as a solo artist in the early 90s. And famously, he was tapped for Van Halen, even though no recordings officially came out. And really, we've only ever heard his side of the story and why it didn't work out. And that's who's been fronting Great White, which I really don't. I just wish they'd reconcile with Jack.
Yeah, I don't think that's ever going to happen, but wishful thinking, I guess. So the last two things, as far as I know, that Jack Russell's Great White has put out, we're still waiting for an actual album from Great White with Mitch Malloy. But in 2020 on Deadline Records, they put out Jack Russell's Great White, Once Bitten Acoustic Bites. I've got a signed copy of this. Actually, my friend from the USA, James Sulikos, saw this band live and got it signed for me by all the members at the time. So Jack's band so it's Jack Russell. Robbie Lochner's been with him for quite a long time on guitar. Dan McNabb is the bass player. A guy by the name of Dickie Flizzar is on drums. And Tony Cardenas, who I think actually featured into a previous version of Great White, is on guitar as well. So
that's interesting. Because I'm just looking inside the credits to He Saw It Coming. Yeah. And his name is Tony Cardenas - Montana. So maybe that is Tony Montana that played on that was the bass player. Now, the only difference in the lineup you just mentioned is that it's not McNabb on bass. The bass player, and here's a guy named Dan McNay, maybe that's what you said. But so it sounds like he's kept the same band members, which is quite something.
Yes. No. So something I didn't actually realize. I thought this was just going to be another. Let's take some of our favorite, most well-known songs and do them acoustically. But as it turns out, this is actually the Once Bitten album done in full. I'm pretty sure in order, plus a Led Zeppelin song tacked on at the end. That entire album done acoustically, and I love this. I've been listening to this since James sent it to me all year, all the time. Of course, Jack Russell is not the awesome singer that he used to be, but there is shades of it. Like he hasn't been touring a lot, so able to rest his voice, and kind of save it for the studio. But there are points on this where, wow, I just really like it. And I love the way everything is played. Really good separation on the instruments and really cool arrangements. So
interesting that they would do that album and not Twice Shy.
yeah, maybe that one's coming.
Although maybe he's going to. Yeah.
As far as I know, the very last thing that they've put out is another version of a a Led Zeppelin covers album. So number 2 for them. I haven't been able to find that one yet.
Yeah, some of these bands, if they're not on the major labels, you're never going to see it in a store. Not in our area anyway. No. And online, chances are you're going to pay more for shipping than the item itself. Unfortunately, that's how it is with these bands that aren't. They had their moment, but it didn't maintain for long enough. But so there you go. That's what we've got for Great White, and I know we're missing a lot. So at some point, it would be cool to do a follow up on this. Maybe if we get enough CDs, we'll just do a CD episode or a vinyl episode. But so Matt, thanks for sitting in on this one once again. We got some very cool episodes coming up for you guys, and as soon as we know a little bit more, we get some unspooled stuff to talk about as well. So thanks everybody for watching Tim's Final Confessions.